Hey folks, I'm Chris and I'm your Commander Mechanic, here with a deck full build, where I'll walk through commanders, card choices, strategies, and upgrades for a deck from scratch. But before we get started, I wanted to remind you that you can win this deck. That's right, we'll be giving away this deck along with 4 other full 100 card decks, and the chance to score upgrades, along with cool accessories from our friends at QuiverTime. Stay tuned to the end of the video to find out how. Today, I want to walk through a deck full build based on our Color Theory Black video, linked here. We previously walked through how black is one of the most versatile colors, being able to do a little bit of everything and using the graveyard as an additional resource. We also explained how that comes with a downside, typically at the cost of paying life. Today's list works with these themes to form what's called an Aristocrats deck, based on sacrificing creatures for benefits and at the detriment of your opponents. Named after Falkenrath Aristocrat, along with similar effects like Cartel Aristocrat, these decks were very popular in Standard around the Innistrad Return to Ravnica era. These decks often rely on creating dies triggers to deal damage to opponents, slowly bringing their life totals down over the course of the game. With this in mind, we want a commander that plays into this theme. Creatures dying or being milled or coming out of the graveyard, all squarely in black's favor and mechanics. And one legendary creature exemplifies all of this: Syr Konrad the Grim. This human knight from Eldraine triggers whenever anyone's creature dies, or goes to the graveyard from a hand or library, or whenever you reanimate, return, or exile a creature from your graveyard. Each of these trigger a damage to each opponent. That gives us a lot of potential to work with. Note, though, that this isn't commander damage. Commander damage comes only in the form of combat damage, so we'll be looking to deal 40 damage to each opponent. Interestingly, Syr Konrad also has an activated ability which mills each player a card, leading to some potential trigger cascades. This can result in creatures being put into the graveyard and triggering Konrad's ability. A pretty nasty way to deal damage to each opponent. Let's begin by looking at core fundamentals of deck building: card draw, ramp, and removal. Black's removal is amazing and one of the color's strengths, though limited mostly to creature removal. And we've included some of it here, from single target removal spells like Murder, Price of Fame, and Murderous Cut, through to board wipes like Mutilate. There's no creature you won't eventually be able to deal with in a deck like this. But non-creature permanents are a different issue. You'll have to rely on dealing with artifacts and enchantments before they become an issue. Discard like Siphon Mind or mill from Syr Konrad and Mindrack Harpy are your best bets for getting rid of potential threats before they become issues. Another one of Black's strengths is some of its mana generating ability. Black relies on one-time ritual spells like Dark Ritual or Songs of the Damned to generate big bursts of mana. And in this deck, that can be used to power out an early Syr Konrad or activate your commander's mill ability to sneak in a few final points of damage. Because Syr Konrad has a mana sink built in, it means we can always use plenty of mana. Also included in the deck is the mana doubler Cryptghast, causing all of your swamps to generate twice as much mana. If you're able to untap with a Cryptghast on board, well, you can cast anything in your deck. Lastly, with card draw, we're able to use a lot of the great abilities unique to Black. Repeatable card draw at the cost of life from Phyrexian Arena. One-time card draw at the cost of life with Sign in Blood, or triggered draw effects at the cost of life with Midnight Reaper. Wow, you can really tell Black likes to use your life as a resource, huh? This deck can definitely be painful to opponents and yourself. Note that, to take advantage of some of our synergies of wanting creatures to go to the graveyard, we've included a few dredge creatures like Golgari Thug and Stinkweed Imp. These can replace your draw effects with milling cards, leading to big bursts of damage with your commander, or netting you a good reanimation target in the yard. So with our core fundamentals in place, let's look at synergies. We want creatures to sacrifice, ways to make your opponent sacrifice outlets, mill outlets, and utility. And maybe some nasty combos too. Creatures are going to make up a large part of our strategy. After all, we want enough to cast, sacrifice, mill, and maintain a board presence. So let's try to make room for at least 30 creatures. This way we can ensure that with our deck alone, if we mill every card in it, we can deal at least 30 damage to our opponents. Hopefully by that stage, 30 damage is enough to take out some opponents. But what kind of creatures are we including? Well, I never hesitate to jam my favorites in here: Fleshbag Marauder, Merciless Executioner, and Demon's Disciple. These creatures represent 4 triggers for Syr Konrad and are great value to reanimate as well, setting opponents behind while getting room to swing in for a few points of damage on attack. And of course, I'm a fan of redundancy, so I've included Plague Crafter and Slum Reaper in the list too. For an effect this efficient and this synergistic, we should try and keep in as many options as possible. Now, we'll also want reanimation. After all, Syr Konrad triggers when a creature leaves our graveyard for any reason. So, Doomed Necromancer, Apprentice Necromancer, and Phyrexian Delver are all amazing options on bodies for returning bigger threats to play while synergizing with our commander. Mill is going to be an important strategy too. Mire Triton can mill us and also help recover a small bit of life when it enters the battlefield, along with being an efficient Death Touch creature. Stitcher's Supplier does not get better for the value. Milling 3 on enters the battlefield, and later, when we get to sacrifice it, another 3 mill triggers. Excellent synergy for our game plan. And one of our big payoffs is Doom Whisperer. Not only is it a 6/6 flying trampler for only 5 mana, but the ability to pay 2 life and surveil 2, putting cards into your graveyard if you choose, lets us dump our life total in a sticky situation to see if we can't sneak in those last points of damage with our commander, or fill our graveyard. When we're paying life, we do want to ensure we have some ways to gain it back. And this deck includes the best option in mono black, Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Gary here drains each opponent and gains us all that life back, equal to our devotion to black. And being a creature means that we can sacrifice and reanimate Gary a few times, leading to a nice alternative win condition to bomb our opponents out with. We will want ways to sacrifice our own creatures. After all, it's not an Aristocrats deck if we aren't sacrificing creatures. And here, we'll want classics: Carrion Feeder and Viscera Seer. Cheap, easy, early ways to sacrifice creatures on demand and net a benefit. I've even included the newer Woe Strider to ensure we have even more options to off our own creatures. Now, let's take a look at non-creature ways to synergize with Syr Konrad and help our game plan of sacrificing creatures. Reanimation is going to be a big theme of the deck. We'll be getting a lot of our better cards into the yard via mill, so let's include efficient options like Call of the Death Dweller and Victimize. These net us a sacrifice and 2 creatures leaving the graveyard and entering the battlefield. That's potentially 3 triggers for Syr Konrad and whatever enters the battlefield effects they may have. No Rest for the Wicked, Tortured Existence, and Forever Young are all amazing ways to get us lots of creatures back from the graveyard to our hands, netting us a Leaves the Graveyard trigger if Syr Konrad is out. And in a worst case scenario, letting us rebuy our best resources from the graveyard. Our biggest payoffs are going to be mass reanimation spells. These will be game enders and help us top off our mana curve. Living Death and Twilight's Call both net us a ton of triggers from creatures entering the battlefield. And with Twilight's Call, Syr Konrad will trigger for each creature you bring back. Now, before we look at our big explosive win cons, let's look at another one of Black's strengths: tutors. Normally, tutors are very expensive, and we can talk about that during upgrades, but what I wanted to ensure is that we include some of the more synergistic tutors in this list to flex Black's unique strength. And I've included two in particular. Final Parting, which gets us a card to hand and a card in the graveyard, perfect for our strategy, and Mausoleum Secrets, which tutors us a black card with casting costs equal to or less than the number of creatures in our graveyard. This will almost always be grab whatever we want at instant speed, since our graveyard aims to be full at all times. Alright, so normally an Aristocrats deck is death by 1,000 cuts, but this is Commander. We want big, splashy wins with big, splashy effects. What fits here? Well, Mind Crank is a great combo piece for us, since it mills each opponent that's dealt damage, and Syr Konrad's trigger deals damage. So with Konrad and Mind Crank, each trigger can net us another potential 3 triggers as we mill our opponents. This has the possibility to go exponential on some good hits against the right opponents. But if you want a big, splashy, one-shot, I win spell, it has got to be Morality Shift. For 7 mana, it's the highest casting cost card in our deck, but with Syr Konrad in play, it will just win more often than not. Syr Konrad sees every creature in our graveyard leaving the graveyard, netting a trigger each, and each creature from our library entering our graveyard, netting a trigger each. So that's why we want 30 creatures in the deck, to pull off a move like this and blast each opponent for 20 to 30 damage. A really interesting trick: if your graveyard is getting full and you need to deal a few more points of damage, you can Tormod's Crypt yourself, and Syr Konrad will see every creature leave your graveyard for a mini fireball style effect. Now finally, when building this and each deck we're giving away this month, I wanted to include a potential pivot commander in the list. In this case, I've included Tormod the Desecrator as a potential partner offering. In the 99, he synergizes with all of the creatures leaving your graveyard. But if you want to mash this together with another partner, you have clear options. Also included is my favorite psychopath, Massacre Girl. Massacre Girl is a board wipe on a body, and as a commander can ensure that casting and recasting her nets us with plenty of dies triggers, much to her delight. And lastly, I've also included Whisper Blood Liturgist in the list. If you want to lean more into reanimation and pulling big bombs back from the graveyard, Whisper lets you make the most of mill, sacrifice, and reanimation effects. All told, this deck really helps exemplify Black. Versatility, ruthlessness, and victory at any cost. Your creatures, your life, and your sanity. For upgrades, there are some clear options. I mentioned tutors, and they help any deck just be more consistent. Black has the best in the game. Demonic Tutor and the recently reprinted Vampiric Tutor are both amazing additions to this list. Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, and Cabal Coffers would also be great additions to help accelerate our mana generation. But so would options like Phyrexian Tower and Crypt of Agadine, as well as Cabal Stronghold. All great ways to help a mono-black, graveyard-centric deck make more mana. Bloodchief Ascension would make an awesome addition too, as it's part of an infinite combo with Mindcrank that's already in the list. It also nets off of all of our mills triggers too. But I understand how most people would rather avoid a 2-card infinite combo. Improving your board wipes with a Toxic Deluge or Damnation would be big additions to your overall staying power, and help solidify any deck's game plan by being an oh no button. And lastly, either Kozilek Butcher of Truth or Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. Why? Because they have graveyard shuffle abilities which help Konrad trigger in a big way. A morality shift, or discarding or milling one of these titans, means you get a trigger for each and every creature leaving your graveyard. Again, that's a big bomb way to win with this list. Remember, you can win this deck along with 4 others we're giving away. 5 lucky winners will each take home a full 100-card EDH deck with goodies from our friends at Quivertime, and thanks to our affiliate at Hairy Tarantula. If you want to win, head over to this video for more details. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment on which deck you want to win. We'll be doing the drawing in a few weeks, but there's no time to lose. Get in now! Let me know what you think of this list and what you would add if you were to enhance it. Let me know in the comments below. One lucky commenter from each of these full build videos will win another prize too. Until next time folks, good luck and have fun!